more important for top laners to have push priority these days because so many more top laners are being, they're roaming out of the top side of the map in between their waves. So at some point, Jace is just going to constantly have the wave pushed into Maokai, eating up all of that farm, but that buys him these windows of opportunity where he can start ducking down towards that mid lane. They have a great jungler like Elise who can either choose to snowball the Jace ahead by repeatedly ganking his lane or team up with Jace's push priority if Maokai wants to play safe and try to bleed over into Easyhoon's power.
Yeah, that's something that we see a team like Invictus Gaming doing really well with Duke.
All the time, mosing down into Rookie's lane. Smeb as well over in Korea is kind of leading the charge on that.
So if you're looking for a successful pattern that already sets up something like this, it does exist, and hopefully Vici Gaming will attempt to make that happen. As we load onto the Rift, this is game number 1 between WE and Vici Gaming. Currently both are tied at 2-2 with identical win-loss records against their opponents. It's really kind of unnerving.
These games will either going to be like a 25-minute just slaughter because these teams are so comfortable and confident about their macro movements. You know, they're great at identifying exactly what objective they need to set up on the map next, or it's going to be a 55-minute just very methodical, slow grind because these teams, you know, they play defense really well, but their offense is quite lackluster.
See, Hatong is trying to set up the plants, and he actually will spawn them early.
And this is really important because that means that Xuan P and Hatong will lose push priority, at least in the first wave. So we'll see what Condi does with this. He has the opportunity that because Misfortune and Ashe will have Varus and Zyra trapped into their tower, that he could contest Bengi's jungle as they rotate to the bottom side.
Immediately you can see Bengi is already skipping his way down there.
Even check out Wuxia. He immediately pushed the lane and he got a very early ward in bottom side river.
Could mean some early excitement. Condi's not going to be there as he's clearing out his wolves right now.
Nah, he just slowed down. Condi actually went for wolves. Well, we'll take a look. I mean, he could theoretically still rush for it, but I think he's actually just going to do red and do a normal clear. They're just trying to keep eyes on where Bengi is.
Taking a look at the fan vote, 84% of fans are favoring WE in this matchup.
That's because they've got Mystic on their team.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, they're Team WE. They're the most popular team in China next to EDG.
Enormous, yeah. But there is now an invade ping out of Ben, and you can see red buff was just cleared by Condi.
Yeah, so it's not Condi that decides to kind of mess with Bengi. It's going to be Ben here poking his head in. See if he actually spots Bengi up. Pings have gone down. He's being very cautious about this. Doesn't want to face check into an Elise. And he's like, yeah, get this spider. We know she's on the bottom side. We're going to destroy the blast plant so she can't sneak into this brush and punish the poor little Ashe Misfortune that are overextended.
As it is, that lane is just going to continue harassing. And 3 minutes in, after the initial jungle path, looks like Condi's heading up to the scuttle.
But this has been so much respect to Bengi. The fact that Condi didn't look for bottom scuttle, despite the fact that his bottom lane is overextended, you know, not giving that security, leaving it up to Ben's responsibility to place deep vision, and he instead prioritizes top scuttle. Like, they don't want anything to do with this Elise.
Yeah, they've now immediately spotted out Bengi with just a few seconds of a faster ward from Condi and the faster scuttle, so they know that he's over there, and that is going to be the Scryer's Bloom actually clearing that out, which means Mystic and Ben can continue to shove in the bottom lane and try to open up this advantage for Mystic, who has been so instrumental to WE's success.
Which means that there's a window where Vici can try to play the top game, which is why Condi is slipping in the back here. So they've learned from the previous mistakes. 957, again, slightly underperforming than what we've expected from him. Had a really rough series coming into this game where he was just camped repeatedly. Learned his lesson a little bit. You know, he pushed the wave into the tower, he knows Elise was on the top side, and then he immediately backed up, had Condi back in the bush behind him in case things went sideways.
Doesn't want to take any chances. You can see he's actually missing out on a few CS here against Long just to make sure that he's safe and doesn't overextend. Even a ward in the tri-bush. As just in case they lost sight of Bengi, there's going to be a quick scout out of Mystic to see if he's on this side of the map. They do not see him as they have now completed recall. Looks like Xuan P does the same, going for longsword and boots.
Yeah, so not having that tier there, you'd figure that with a really early recall from Varus that he would go the tier route. We'll see if this punishes him later on, or maybe he mixes things up right now, but it's also going to then prompt a free back from Mystic. Varus is not going to be in a weaker point, however, because he's coming back with battle stats.
Yeah, Easy Hoon just called Xie's bluff right there. He already got his early recall for a tier and just hard shoved up in the mid lane. Bengi on the invade. He's going to catch the wolves as they respawn and looks to invade with Xie recalling. That means Kandi's going to get there just a little bit too late.
Yeah, but Kandi will have his top laner. I think Bengi just needs to walk away from this. I don't think either jungler really wants to scuffle too much, but that's cute.
Repel to the Scryer's Bloom.
And so far, it's been a very slow-paced early game. You know, we've seen a lot of these elites that they just really turn on the gank. They try to make that gamble for the Moby boots. Bengi not going that route, instead going for the Tracker's ward. So everyone really kind of committing to the style that we know and love from both Vici and WE. Slow, methodical, gather the information. Don't make the 50-50 play. Make the 70-30 play.
Yeah, and that was a bit of a concern coming into this
hold
matchup.
on.
As Xie face checks right into Bengi and eats a lot of damage. Kandi is there, but Xie already, he just got back into lane.
It is a health advantage now, however, for the duo mid-jungle. Although not anymore now that Kandi procs Honey Fruit.
Gets himself right back up as Bengi will now start clearing out his camp. Still staying close to that mid lane, but Xuan P is headed up there as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, Hatong and Xuan P can't commit to being overextended and laying down poke while Mystic and Ben are dealing with the creep wave in front of them, simply because they knew that Ryze and Kha'Zix were in the bottom side river. So despite the fact that no first blood goes down, Xuan P and Hatong are still punished from the scuffle in top river.
So taking a look at this bottom lane, Mystic, you can see, has been controlling the lane quite convincingly. Despite the harass that keeps on landing onto Ben, Mystic is a full 20 CS ahead right now as Xuan P eats the Ranger's focus. That's exhaust used by Hatong to keep Xuan P safe. And just the lane advantage in CS, but also harass.
I'm not sure if he really needed to burn the exhaust right there. Xuan P, you know, still has his flash as well as his heal available, so was confident enough that Mystic wasn't going to try to flash auto attack after him. Yeah, it was close, but ultimately still a favorable trade for Team WE because now they have the trade advantage with summoner spells by having their exhaust. Oh, flash!
There, Mystic sidesteps. He did have Ben going for an invade and was spotted on his way out in the river, so.
That's big, though. Okay, so Ben actually walked up, and this is the second time that he's left lane, which means that Ashe has gotten solo EXP. And the thing is if you leave Ashe alone and you don't quite know when she's going to tick over 6, it can be incredibly punishing. And now Zyra doesn't have flash. Hatong trying to go all in for the kill, like, just put himself in a complete big like red flag danger zone, which is why they're like, we can't hang around anymore. We have to back. It may not, we may not want to because we had pots to sit down there and sustain, but Ashe is too close to 6 and Zyra is a giant target.
Yeah, it is a gambit. If they can kill the Ashe and deny that level 6, that gets Xuan P back to even in lane. But as it is, the recall is completed. Berserker Greaves first out of Xuan P along with his longsword. Mystic a full longsword and dagger ahead. Feeling pretty good for himself.
Such a cost-efficient item, Berserker Greaves. I mean, it's less expensive than the Zeal. You pretty much get the exact same attack speed from it. And then it's really potent in these lanes because you're trying to dodge the giant ice arrow as well as the Zyra route. Now the junglers are getting involved, however.
Yeah, Kandi's trying to sneak down there. There's no Warden try to spot him out, but a fresh control ward from Hatong as the wave pushes in. They will see him with a plant, I believe. Kandi's trying to wait outside of vision. Yeah, there are pings going on him right now, and Bengi is flanking from behind.
And it's because Mystic is now level 6, so again, continuing to get that solo EXP onto the Ashe. He has his ultimate, and they're looking at Zyra. So the trap was set up, but Vici don't fall for it.
Yeah, WE are unsuccessful. Kandi once again is going to spot Bengi, just clearing out the jungle. And despite the success that we're seeing out of WE in the bottom lane, Bengi is just barely a step faster than Kandi. That's the second time he's been able to invade and steal away. And now he's getting in behind WE here as they force the engage onto Hatong and kill him for first blood. Mystic still has no flash. That's heal being used. Teleport is dropped as well. Xuan P gets revenge. Bengi looks for the dive as Chain of Corruptions is picked up. And that is a 2-for-1 Vici Gaming.
And Bengi being fast to the punch there, you know, making the earlier rotation, slipping in underneath Kandi. So yes, Team WE do manage to pick up the first blood, but now there's a lot of tower pressure from Vici.
Yeah, that's teleport. Looks like WE want to try to fight this. Realm Warp is there, but Xie does not use it, and the teleport is canceled.
interesting. So Easyhoon was making his way down bottom, although hold on a second. We're going to get a replay of that. And yeah, Zyra doesn't have flash. You knew that that was coming. Hatong knew that that was coming. They do a good job by immediately pulling the trigger and getting Long down here to pick up the kill, and it's worth his time because he does manage to participate in that assist. Still would have rather given that kill gold over to the Jace. Now Realm up mid.
On to Easyhoon,
Oh!
but the trap has been initiated. Kandi leaps in, he stealth flashes, but dies to an auto attack. They manage to trade 2 for 1 in answer and get just out of Bengi's repel range. It's now 3-3.
So 957 makes up for the fact that he didn't teleport bottom, but gets that lane shove forward. We talked about at the very beginning of this game, you know, you have to keep tabs on these top laners because more often than not, they're starting to make those rotations into the mid lane, especially with hard, targetable CC like the Maokai has.
And with this, we get to the 11-minute mark. And despite the two teams being dead even in the standings, dead even in match history, they now find themselves nearly dead even in kills and gold in this next matchup. Soon that will be upset, however. The question is it going to be sooner or later? Well, in the history of these two, oh, Ben gets cocooned. Bengi actually turns and manages to get a lot of damage with the volatile Spiderling, but Make It Rain slows it down. Messick is waiting right over there.
In the end, though, Ben almost punished for his back timing. The other interesting thing is the fact that the gold is allocated in pretty much the exact same places for either team. One thing is that Jace has a more expensive build to be relevant than Maokai does, but it's Jace. Again, 7.1, not 7.3, so he's not as terrifying as he will later be on other patches. We now, bit of a pause.
Pause indeed. We'll have to keep an eye on whether or not Long can see success on that. I mean, he did win in his last game on that Jace, so we know that he is capable of scaling, and that was against Xiaogu versus Kabe.
But what I was saying, or what I wanted to get to the point of, is that because Maokai is low econ, because the gold is allocated in very similar places, like no one's infinitely snowballed ahead of the clock or ahead of their counterpart, that Team WE have an earlier window to act to be relevant. Like, they're going to be stronger earlier. So as we come closer to like a big 5v5 around this dragon or these teleport timers coming back up, you should see Team WE being more proactive and Vici kind of needing to absorb that for a little bit longer so they can get closer to those breakpoints on more expensive items like Jace's build.
And that was the question that we sort of posed at the beginning. These teams need to break the mold of waiting for 35 minutes and then trying to make something happen. Who is that going to be? If WE have got this window where that they can hit just a little bit sooner than Vici, is it going to be the Ashe that's 20 CS up, or perhaps Rise looking for a roam?
They also have an easier formula to do it, so I agree with you. I think it's more leaning towards Team WE. The problem is that they may be a bit gun-shy. You know, they had a really rough schedule coming into the very beginning of 2017, a really heartbreaking loss against EDG and a 2-0 defeat, although those games could have gone either way. It came down to like a miracle 1v4 outplay by Scout. So they may just want to kind of go back to basics, play this one really clean versus trying to experiment or really push the envelope and figure themselves out.
We'll definitely keep an eye on whether or not they will return to that. Of course, this is a best of 3, so even in the event that they do not get the chance to take game number 1, there's always more to turn it around later. So from what we've seen from that early game, what can we take away from
What
this?
early game?
Yeah. The sort of very patient laning phase and roaming around. Here you can see the stats on your screen. Bengi a full 20 CS up, but in answer, Mystic is doing the same in bottom lane.
I mean, we said this from the beginning that the one place that Team WE should just be hands down stronger was in that bottom lane. Vici have notoriously struggled with this, and they just kind of try to get their bottom lane the best possible champions early on in the draft just to keep them afloat. Bengi did come down there with a lot of assistance, as did Long, but it was completely answered by the fact that Maokai was able to make that roam into the mid lane. So what looked good initially was kind of undone with just a slight, you know, falling asleep at the wheel and giving away any sort of incremental advantage that you had. But ultimately, Team WE's plan has been track Bengi. You know, that they did it from the very beginning. They made sure that they had push priority. Ben was constantly peeking into his jungle. Kandi wasn't trying to duel Bengi, just to kind of figure out where he was.
Yeah, and how does an Elise player, especially one like Bengi, who is so mobile, break free from this consistent vision, this consistent tracking.
I mean, he did a good job by getting the counter or the answer to the first blood that Mystic picked up, you know, finally making his way bottom by ducking underneath the vision. But this isn't the Moby Elise boot start that we've seen a lot of these Elises try to snowball off of. Bingy's responsibility in this, he's going to pretty much turn into a cocoon bot come mid and late game. So all eyes really need to be on EasyHoon. Unfortunately, EasyHoon's on Orianna, so that champion takes a bit more time to ramp. So I feel like, again, we're in this scenario where the teams are just going to make a gentleman's agreement, you know, maybe trade a few kills, but
20-minute no rush.
Yeah.
And then
get our items. I'll see you in the 5v5 in 30 minutes.
Battle cruisers, carriers, and broodlords. That's going to be the big combo.
Unless, again, Team WE, their Maokai is pretty much even with the Jace right now. Jace is going to have a more expensive item build to be relevant in 5v5s. So there's a possibility that it comes to a big dragon fight. If Vici decide that they want to try to take that, I think Team WE could kick in the door a little bit there.
Perhaps. And that would be a great way for 957 to reassert dominance. Say, hey, I have had a bit of difficulty in the top lane lately. Well, put me on a tank. Now let's force a fight at dragon and just take advantage of this slightly earlier window. Especially because it is going to be a Mountain Drake.
One would hope. The other thing is Rusty talked about this earlier before. Team WE still have to be so vigilant about keeping track of neutral vision because Elise can do the Mountain Dragon. She can sneak it. So maybe Vici have this this opportunity or this trick up their sleeve where they don't need to look towards the 5v5 because of how slowly the Mountain Dragon attacks. Elise can keep all of her spiderlings up. It takes a long time, but she can do it by herself.
Yeah.
The issue is that Mystic and Bin have full control over the bottom side, and Bin has shown that he really wants to get in this river.
They're going to try to force a fight onto EasyHoon. Shockwave catches only Xie, but he's going to be turned off on by Bengi and will die as EasyHoon just flashes the wall. Suddenly Kandi way too far forward. WE pull the trap, but they are the ones in its jaws as Vici collapse and Kandi goes down to Bengi.
But you can see the idea that Team WE are looking for there. They throw the arrow, unfortunately it doesn't connect, and the mistake is that they continue to follow up on the failed big ultimate. And now EasyHoon, incredibly healthy with his double buffs, with the kill to his name, doesn't have flash, but that window that Team WE had where they were technically stronger in the 5v5 if they got their Maokai involved has kind of shut.
Yeah, seems like that window, it's more of a slam, really. Bengi and Hatong so fast at reacting, keeping track of WE. Again, Bengi's just such a fast jungler.
Super efficient, I think is the word to go for. But yeah, you can see it. It's just he's like a few seconds ahead because he's just efficiently more pathing or predicting where you're going to be. Makes sense to be a, two-time world champion?
Yeah, at this point. As a result, the mid-tier 1 goes down, and blue buff is going to be gifted over to Long. So both solo lanes for Vici have got blue buff, and you can see 957 desperately pushing before he's going to start recalling.
Oh, I hurt for Team WE, seeing Orianna and Jace with blue buff.
Yeah.
And now that they've taken down that mid-tier tower, it means that Vici now have a pressure point that they can pivot around if they want to move into this Mountain Drake. Or maybe they just want to continue to exploit the advantage that Long now has over Maokai with that blue. Keep it in standard lanes and just start to pull smaller CS advantages in Orianna and Jace over the Maokai and Ryze.
Yeah,
Although,
Kandi
that was
and
cute.
Xie, they will be able to steal away the blue buff despite the collapsing Vici gaming. They're able to make it out. The arrow is
number
tossed,
2.
and that is Repel. Bengi dodges it yet again. But as for WE, they still want to try to force this window open. They're looking for Hatong right now. He's got no flash. Realm Warp gets Xie over the wall, but the Chains of Corruption stops Kandi for pursuing.
957 tried to teleport. I didn't see it, but he must have canceled it because he doesn't have the cooldown available. That's big. Long has his. Vici, Team WE completely fizzles out. They want to go for the dragon, but because they don't have their Maokai, they can't afford to commit.
Oh, yet another trap. The sweeper is going to know that they are safe. Kandi sneaks forward.
957's also walking down.
He's still very far away, a full 2 screens off, and WE are unable to collapse as Vici make it back to the turret and deny the attempt from WE to break the glass on the window of that play.
Disastrous execution from Team W again. You can clearly see what they're thinking. They know that they're stronger. They know that they want to fight, but they mis-execute and lose the advantage. And again, if you're losing tempo control like that, you're just giving free time where Vici continue to scale up.
Chuan and Hatong continue to harass down here in the bottom lane, almost breaking down that bottom tier 1 as slowly but surely Vici are starting to eke out advantages.
Yeah, and speaking of advantages, things just got a whole lot tougher for 957 in the top lane. Long now has his completed Black Cleaver, so Maokai can no longer kind of sit up there and just absorb the farm. He's going to lose that lane.
That's going to be the bullet time.
That's going to be the misfortune.
Stranglethorns, and Ben is dead. Bottom tier 1 goes down as Bengi's the one who gets the kill gold, forcing the fight there. As Long, you said, he's got the Black Cleaver, starts shredding through the armor of 957 and then doing some work with that BF sword.
And this is the bleed over. You know, Team WE, they went to make the play. Vici dodged it with Bengi pretty much dodging out the arrow by rappelling up into the air, and then they make the counterplay. They take the bottom tower and are now trying to rotate their advantage around the map.
Yeah, Kandi, I'm not sure if he showed himself in the top lane, but Long respects it enough and allows the top tier 1 to go down and trade. Still, advantage Vici Gaming as they are starting to set up for the lane swap now.
Because they have more control over the bottom side of the map, and that's what really matters, because that's where the Mountain Dragon is, and that's our big objective that's live right now.
With that, 957 heads back to the top lane, keeping the duo from WE bottom as the duo from Vici are top.
It's pretty much a conscious trade then at this point. As soon as Team WE showed that they have multiple members up here, Vici have multiple members up here, this should mean that Team WE will turn towards the dragon or trade the tower and then grab the dragon. So Vici actually just saying that this is what's more important to them.
957 is trying to defend this wave up here. The Cocoon misses, but Chains of Corruption does not. He's snared, followed up by Ben. That's Exhaust. He flashes. Long follows along with an arrow. 957 heals himself up, but Long shreds through that Maokai.
Okay, so in the end, it's the pocket gold of the Maokai as well as a tower-for-tower trade. Mystic is pushing through. Oh, wait, hold on. Vici have tempo advantage and a creep wave behind them. Kandi's busy on the Mountain Drake.
That's a lot of AD on that Jace, plus Elise for rushing down the turret. Despite the low health, Vici are looking to rush down the tier 2, and they break it down. The arrow goes wide. Xie ate some harass and is forced to ghost away as Vici come out on top.
So for a second, it looked like Team WE made the right call because they were going to nab two objectives for the price of one, but 957 overextends, is caught, so the two members aren't there to guard against the push through from Vici, and they pick up an inner turret.
And just like that, Vici have opened up the map a huge amount. You can see the incredible amount of vision that they've got set up on the top side of the map to enable Bengi even more. And now Mystic relegated to catching minions in the mid lane as Xie is going to take the long walk towards bottom. Ben just got assassinated by EasyHoon.
Yeah, EasyHoon has completed Morales as well as a Needlessly Large, and that's just a poor little misfortune support.
Yeah.
Again, we talk about how Orianna's usually kind of like that 3-item power spike AP carry, but you know, if MF just kind of walks over the side of the wall, he has no problem popping her.
Yeah, here this is once again, standing on... Oh, it's blind! Gets the shockwave, attack, dissonance. Meanwhile, Kandi and Xie land right on top of a hail of arrows. Nice and slow. Chuan P gives it a few dance moves and walks away.
That's pretty brave, Chuan P. Calm down.
I think Xie actually flashed as well to try to get that. His flash is on cooldown. So, as we get towards this 19-minute mark, Rift Herald is now being taken by Vici Gaming. Long is going to take it for EasyHoon and look to continue to press this forward. And Ben, as you said, getting caught out 0-3. We were just a few days ago complimenting him for replacing Zero and making strides forward. Seems to be having a little bit more of a difficult time in this game.
Team WE's vision in general has had a difficult time this game, and again, Ben, he's on a more fragile support like Misfortune. Usually they ban Zyra away and they ban the Malzahar away, or they pick it themselves, so he really hasn't had to go into this matchup too often. It may just be that he's kind of uncomfortable with it. But I don't want to tear down Ben quite so early. Yeah, it's not the greatest game that he's had.
It's still a game to one.
But you can understand, you know, why it's happened.
Yeah. Vici Gaming again taking it very patient right now after their first few advantages. No big neutral objectives on the map, but for Baron spawning in 20 seconds. And so they just prep their waves, look for those 2-3 item spikes, and look for the advantages. How did WE get themselves back into this at such a 2-turret deficit?
They need to hit an arrow. Mystic is kind of notorious for missing arrows. He's a phenomenal Ezreal player, so you'd think that he'd be really good at skill shots. But you know, it moves at a different speed than it just feels different than the true shot barrage. And that's kind of been the big, black mark on their record so far is that they go for the right play, but they fail the execution and just kind of give the play back to Vici, who are nailing their execution, particularly at Bengi. He's dodged 2 arrows now. He's made the counter gank on First Blood happen. He made that rotation. Elise has the pushing power with the spider lanes and her ability to augment the attack speed to push through on top side and trade an inner for a mountain and an outer.
Then that begs the question for the antithesis for Vici Gaming. Earlier we asked what do they need to change if they want to show growth as a top-tier team, especially in such a stacked group, the scramble for the throne. If they're seeing success with Bengi on such a playmaker and EasyHoon with these limited mage-type champions,
it's the key word there is playmaker and leader, and that's what Vici need. They need consistency from their bottom lane to not be a liability, and they need a consistent leader or carry on the team. If it's Bengi, if it's EasyHoon, if it's Long, I don't care. But one of them has to choose it because historically they're all supportive players, but you can't have 5 supports on one team.
I disagree. I did it once in solo queue, and it was hilarious.
I can imagine.
We did not win, however. But it depends if you think of winning in terms of fun or victory. I think in the LPL, they're probably focused on victory.
I believe the motto is victory or nothing.
Yeah. It's a little bit of different perspectives here. Speaking of carries, Bengi just recalled going for the Leandri's Torment Elise.
We talked about, stepping up and being that carry.
Yeah.
So going for the penetration there. Likewise, other items coming complete. EasyHoon now has his Uden's Leka. Wow.
Luden's Echo.
Uden's Leko.
That's impressive.
Oh. I did all of my tongue twisters today, too. I was like, this isn't going to happen again. I can speak the English language. Luden's Echo. Of course, synergizes so well with Orianna. It's got that movement speed as well as his burst damage is going to be really online. So, Ben, be a little bit careful because you think you got burst before.
He had to get the ward down with no vision there, and Vici Gaming grouped up around the wall. You really can't afford to take chances. 957 is walking mid, though.
But he's not being helped, and that's kind of the bigger issue here. Yeah, you can point at Ben and be like, why are you doing that alone as the misfortune?
Tries to force a fight on EasyHoon, flash cleanse, and sidestep.
And failed execution again on the flash and the arrow. Now ball back to Vici's court.
Yeah, they've got the Orianna, so they've got control.
But kind of back to Ben. No one is helping him ward. No one is going with him. You don't have the hawk shot that's scouting out an area as Misfortune's moving into it. Just seems kind of wonky and odd. This isn't the norm that he kind of set up with Team WE, debuting into the LPL just a few weeks ago.
Seems like WE might be struggling a little bit to return to the playstyle in which they saw success. A very sneaky Baron attempt at the 23-minute mark out of Vici. Looks like 957 is the only person who's close. He doesn't have his flash. And this is Vici trying to burn through. Lots of pings. WE know it's happening, but they can't do anything. It is taken before WE get a chance to respond, and Vici just walk it off.
And this is 2 problems. A, we just talked about how Ben isn't able to ward, and no one is helping him move into those areas to ward, so they don't know that that's happening until it's too late. And 2, the reason why Vici pulled the trigger on that is because the execution failed. Maokai didn't have the flash, and Mystic didn't have the arrow, so they weren't afraid to move down into that river because there's no pick potential.
Yeah, the poor constellation of Infernal Drake is what WE are trying to answer with, but Vici with a quick recall are racing back out. There's the Chains of Corruption onto Mystic. He is demolished by Vici Gaming. Hatong goes in as 957 is carried into the backline with Ben, who drops, and Hatong goes down, but now it's Long EasyHoon trying to chase Xie down. 957 zones them away as Kandi leaps away from the pit. And despite the fact that Hatong has died, this is Vici looking to take the fight very cleanly. 1 for 3, Vici Gaming.
And there's no reason to be there. Why are you even in that bottom side of the river to extend for any sort of dragon or objective when Vici have Baron? If you lose that team fight, suddenly they're going to be able to crack your base.
And with that, the Tier 2 falls. They're still bringing in a minion wave. It's up to Xie, Kandi, and Ben to try defending, but with Vici already on the inhibitor turret, it's going to fall. 25 minutes in, the slow and steady of Vici Gaming has accelerated.
And again, Bengi just outplaying the arrow execution. That's 3 times now that the arrows have been aimed at his head, and he's been able to dodge it. Now Mystic's out of position. He instantly blows up. It's a good ultimate from Ben, although he's forced to back off because Hatong follows it up with an even better one. And then it's really just the Long and EasyHoon show. Orianna's online at this point. We said that she had her 2-item breaking point. She's only going to get stronger from here. And Jace is a monster. It takes him a while to ramp up, but the mid-game power spike is here. Black Cleaver, Bloodthirster.
Yeah, that is a brutal setup from Vici Gaming. To return to the question, who's going to be the carry for Vici Gaming? Why not everyone?
Everyone suddenly puts their hands up.
Yeah, why not both? And yet another pause goes out as Vici Gaming are looking so very strong in this right now. Just completely taking control of the matchup after a very patient early game. They were content to sack the bottom. They just found advantages.
We said that this game was going to go one of two ways. It was either going to be a 25-minute stomp because both of these teams are so good at playing the macro game. They're one of the smarter or two smartest teams in the LPL, or it was going to be this kind of long, drawn-out grind. But the fact that Vici were so confident to make a call on that Baron has accelerated the course of things quite significantly. And then Team WE making such a catastrophic call to go and try to sneak a dragon out after a failed arrow execution, losing the team fight and then having their base cracked. It's kind of like from bad to worse.
Yeah, you can see how the confidence of WE seems to be shaken the further and further we get into this matchup. After the very confident laning phases, the movements of Condi around the map, only to lose that first blood, lose a few couple of fights, and then they couldn't even approach the Baron at all. Seems like WE are starting to struggle when they find themselves behind.
What I find interesting is that P went for the, it's a tank buster build because he has his Blade of the Rune King, which that makes sense. You've got the Rise, you have the Maokai, you know, they need someone to kill those tanks, but theoretically this is still kind of like a poke comp because you have the Varus and the Jace, but he decided to move away from the lethality build, which technically isn't as strong on 7.1 as 7.2 and beyond. But still, this is kind of like twice now that P, he builds the Varus build,
yeah,
for kind of the situation what his comp
maybe he knows
demands.
something we don't. As it is, however, Vici are setting up a 4-1. They've still got Baron for another 2.5 minutes. As Long heads towards the bottom, the rest of Vici head towards the top lane.
I mean, the nice thing is that Long's doing a lot of the penetration for him with the Black Cleaver.
Yeah. And Banky is looking for a lucky pick onto Ben yet again, but he's already recalled into base. Wasn't WE supposed to be excellent at defending and waiting out once they find themselves at a disadvantage?
They're amazing at hiding in their bunker. They're terrible when all things considered go around the Dragon Pit. They used to be amazing at it.
Yeah.
We called them the Elder Dragon team not because they needed Elder Dragon to win, but they were so good at fighting in that area, as well as the fact that it took them 35 minutes to show up and make the fight. But as of recently, pretty much since their downfall to newbie or their throw to newbie, they just have been making terrible choices in that area.
Yeah.
But Vici right now making all the right choices.
They're just moving around the map so effectively. Long sets up the minion wave bottom, and despite the fact that WE are set up in the jungle, it just takes Bengi walking forward with a single cocoon to scare 957 and the rest of WE back. The bottom tier 2 falls, and with the minion wave prepped up in mid lane, Vici might look to collapse and finish the job of that inhibitor that they started earlier.
And take a look at Vici's ward line, which has been kind of creeping up behind them as they've made these beautiful, you know, macro calls across the map. So where Team W have kind of failed and a lot of their map went dark, Vici have not fallen into that trap. It's allowed them to make it this far. However, their ward line will now leave them behind.
Yes, they're starting to edge their way into the base, trying to keep vision of 957. Do not want to get teleport flanked. So they let the minions lead the way, despite the fact that they have an 11,000 gold lead. So much respect from Vici. Just not to take any chances. Like you said, not even looking for the 70-30. It's 100 or 0. There goes the Realm Warp. Arrow is going to field goal, and that's WE's engaged.
Yeah, a lot of key cooldowns, as well as the fact that 957's Maokai ultimate has just fallen off. So yeah, it's a much shorter cooldown, but you're still waiting for that to come back up. This should be the green light for Vici to slide in here and push down this inhib.
WE, they look for the play, but miss the execution. The inhibitor falls as Vici clean up the job. And just like that, it's still a 10,000 gold lead, but with that inhib down, Vici have got all the time in the world.
Go home, spin their gold, level up again, really start abusing that gold difference between the teams, and then make their next play. Baron going to spawn in 140, as well as the Infernal Drake. So I'm going to assume that Vici are going to bounce between the two.
Yeah.
This does mean that Team WE have this tiny little window where they can quickly rush out of their base, grab the farm, try to reset the waves, and more importantly, get vision on these monster objectives.
You can see they've got some vision down towards the bottom lane, and with 957 and Mystic pushing out those side lanes, they're trying to get these minions forward so they can get control up to the river. But already, Vici are back in that river, and the furthest ward I see is by Blue Buff and by Krugs on the opposite side of the map. WE were not to get too far forward this time.
Yeah, unfortunately dealing with the super creep wave in the mid lane, and that's the shortest route to the Baron. but time's still alive. They've got 30 seconds on Infernal, 1 minute on Baron. I'm assuming that they're at least going to give over the Dragon unless they feel confident. Maybe Mystic lands that arrow. That said, Easyhoon is a monster right now. Orianna is hit that last item, has the Void Staff, has the penetration, so that Shockwave will be game ending if it lands on Team WE.
If he can find a recall out of Xuan P real quick, just to make sure he can top himself up on mana. And he also finishes a full Lord Dominic's Regards. Infernal Drake is started out now by Vici Gaming. Bengi is going to shred through that with some assistance from Patong. Very quickly, the completed Abyssal Scepter doing a lot of work. Baron respawns, but Vici are already moving that direction.
Yeah, Xuan P's responsibility in the team is very clear. You are the Maokai killer. Deal with the tree, cut it down. Doesn't have a bow and arrow, who has an axe. He's got the Lord Dominic's there too. The Lord Dominic's, the Bork. It's just funny because this is the one comp you're like, oh, it's such great for poke. You think he'll build the lethality. He's like, no, frontline me.
Full shred. I want to be standing in the front as Varus.
Makes sense.
Against Ashe and Ryze and Maokai. The classic. But with the minions continuing to press up, you can see that WE have finally reclaimed some semblance of vision on that Baron side of the map. Vici are going to need to relocate their wards, try to set themselves up for this next objective.
The one thing that Vici can abuse while they kind of wait out these wards, or they'll hold on.
Oh, again! Bengi with the lightning reaction. He's caught by the slow from volley, but is still able to walk away.
It's like that guy's a world champion. No, that's really impressive from Bengi to be that consistent every single time. And I believe, was that arrow thrown from Fog of War?
So there is a ward in the back of blue right now.
But I don't think they saw Ashe throw it, but they saw it as it was moving.
Yeah. Immediate reaction.
Great reaction. But what I was saying is that Vici can actually exploit their lane assignment. So again, Long, if they don't want to take a 5v5 over a Baron, because that's the one way that Team WE get back in this game, although without the arrow, they do have more incentive to do that anyway. They could just continue to exploit Long in one of these side lanes against the Maokai. Instead though, because the arrow missed, they are pulling Long towards the rest of the team, so we're gearing up for the arena. Yeah,
he has completed that Sterix gauge and has the minion wave pressure in the bottom lane. As WE continue to move around, the arrow is almost off of cooldown. The Essence Reaver doing so much. There is no vision for WE whatsoever in that river.
Condi though.
And it looks like Vici are trying to start off the Baron, perhaps trying to bait WE forward. As they continue to clear it out time and time again. The sweeper used, but is denied as Bengi zones them away. Oh, Ben, you don't want to be in the front there.
He has to, though. Someone has to creep forward.
Gets the ward, but it is immediately cleared. They are going to try to force a fight onto Bengi. He's isolated from his team, but repels to stall this out. 957 is split. Xuan P's on the opposite side, not quite shredding through the Maokai, but Long chases, doing some damage with the Black Cleaver and brings him down to about 1,000 health. Cocoon misses as 957 sidesteps. Shockwave from Easyhoon locks down Maokai.
Looks completely split from communication. Mystic was actually pushing the wave, and he held onto that arrow for a very long time as Long chased not one member of Team WE off, but two, completely forcing both Condi and 957 away from the fight. Without their Maokai, they do have the smite. Both junglers are level 14, but they're locked out of the pit.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of damage from the bullet time. Ben is caught in a snare and shot down by Xuan P. Baron picked up by Vici Gaming, and they are now 12,000 gold ahead and setting up to keep pushing.
Just so beautifully orchestrated from Vici. You know, we talked about they need the consistency of leadership. They need the consistency of a carry. They also need the consistency of confidence. So long these teams will play such great counterplay, but not be proactive on the map or be confident enough to just flash forward and throw all of your abilities down. So it's comforting and it's great for Vici fans to see that. It looks like a revitalized team.
Mm-hmm. Grouped as 4, they return to the 4-1 split push, setting up to start pressuring back into WE's base and take down the inhibitor that has now respawned. Vici Gaming look to get some damage here as Mystic will try to clear out these minions, but he's going to have a tough time knowing that there's so much potential damage that can be lanced forth as Condi eats a shockwave and narrowly survives.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Long is setting up the bottom wave, so this is about to be a two-pronged problem that Team W are going to be looking down.
The inhibitor falls in the meanwhile as Vici now rotate their minions towards the bottom to catch up with Long, cleaning out this wave as fast as they can. The arrow catches Xuan P. Quicksilver Sash has enough of that. Ward over the wall. tries to set up an opening for a freshly revitalized. Bullet Time gets bent away. Stranglethorns to disengage, but Xuan P shreds through 957, does his job quite admirably. Shock Blast from Long is going to clean up yet another kill as Mystic goes down, and Vici chase this forward. It's 5 versus 2 right now, and despite the bouncing rune energy of Xie, they cannot drop Vici.
Team WE just absolutely melted right there. The disgusting damage from the Shock Blast arrow combination. So this is following a great QSS from Xuan P. Then again, the Maokai killer build. He's also got the Jace there with the Black Cleaver. That is not the invincible Maokais we're used to seeing. He melts. Now check out Mystic. He's going to blow up. Bam! Shock Blast. Just 40% of his HP gone.
Yeah. That is not a very happy place to be. Xuan P, you just saw, very excited about that double kill that he got, as that's now 2 inhibitors down. Elder Dragon up in 40 seconds. WE are the Elder Dragon team, but at a 15,000 gold disadvantage, might not be their time to shine.
They would need a miracle play.
This is the LPL, you know. I feel like every time we say that, we have to caveat it.
The problem is that their composition is really good at kind of blowing up one person immediately if they connect the arrow and then Kha'Zix gets a hold of them. But there are so many damage threats and so many viable carries on Vici right now that even if Team WE do finally hit the arrow on a key target, like even if they blow up the Varus, you're still dealing with the Jace. Even if they hit the Jace, so you've then got the Orianna. Even if you hit the Orianna, Elise is running around with Void Staff, Leandre's Abyssal.
Yeah, this is Vici Gaming taking a very heavy-handed approach to the question of, but who will carry? All of us. Just build more damage items than your opponents.
But what's scary is that if this composition ever fell behind because they don't have a tank, so Vici, it's hard to execute because if you mess it up, you're pretty much screwed. Vici played the early game so well and being so cautious, you know, not overextending themselves and putting themselves into their position of power.
Again, the arrow is chucked out. That's the cleanse used as
Xuan
P is in the back. Here comes 957. Bangy's in the front as Long tries to collapse, and 957 goes down. The GA is popped before his team can even get there. Mystic clears a single plant before 957 flashes away and will die to Easy Hoon.
I think he just got 3 shot.
Yeah, Vici Gaming are doing some work here. Again, following the checklist, stock standard, clearing out 3 inhibitors before pushing forward. Without a tank, that means Vici can continue to be aggressive and chase forward, bringing these minions and now super minions onto the Nexus turrets. Vici Gaming cleaned down 1, knocked down the 2nd before turning onto the Nexus itself. It's now or nothing as WE go in. Bangy's caught by a snare, but Xie eats a huge shockwave. Kandi, mid-leap, is flung back and goes down. Bangy doesn't even die as Long zones Mystic from the far side. Arrow catches Xuan P as Mystic goes huge, but it is not enough. The Nexus itself falls to Vici Gaming, and they take game number 1 against WE.
So they didn't end the game at 25 minutes, but the game was certainly over then. Vici making an incredible Baron call that was the nail in the coffin for Team WE, and then just swept it out methodically from there.
Now joining us once again on the desk is going to be Raz. Tell us, what'd you see?
Ooh, I mean, Vici was doing wild things. That's what I saw. That was fantastic from Vici. And I mean, just looking at the game, it was not a good game from 957. Or, on the other hand, it was a great game from Long. So he picks up the Jace, and overall, he plays fantastically. And he's able to isolate Maokai, because honestly, in the early game, we didn't see him.
Yeah, here you can see some of the stats from that game. 16,000 gold ahead. I mean, before the game actually started, we got a long highlight of him 1v2ing on Camille. He's shown that he can do amazing things in the top lane if he just gets the opportunity.
And you can see those amazing things. 19.1k, most damage in the game. Yeah, it's Jace, he's a poke champion. It's going to be able to throw that out, stack it very easily. But it's nice to see, you know, someone other than Easy Hoon and Bangy go off on that roster, though. Bangy, highlight reel after highlight reel in those arrows.
And honestly, the reason why Bangy was doing so well, being able to catch it out, plus he's Elise, and he recognized that no arrow is going to touch this man. It's not going to happen. But it was mostly because it's such a hard composition to run if Ashe is not hitting arrows. And they weren't really setting up for that because at the end of the day, you're Kha'Zix and MF, and if you're roaming around, we saw from 12 minutes and 30 seconds into 14 minutes for the longest time, WE was just making the merry-go-round around Dragon trying to find
because they're just waiting for that cooldown.
Exactly. They were waiting for stuff. They couldn't find it. And honestly, the composition relied on Maokai because you're not going to be getting picks with Misfortune. You're not going to be getting picks with Kha'Zix. A lot of the times they would find Bengi, they couldn't get him down. They would find Orianna, they couldn't have him down. And they would maybe if their mid laner, if Rise was ahead, they can finally get someone going. But honestly, he was shut down mid 6 minutes into the game.
Easy Hoon kept track of him for so long.
It was not only Easy Hoon, but man, Bengi pressured that lane so heavily. 6 minutes into the game was able to pressure him down. So Rise was like literally just 20 CS behind.
It certainly was tough. And I think the really cool thing was they weren't just like firing these arrows into the dark. Ben was looking for vision, but every time he stepped forward, he just got smacked down. And finally, he just stopped approaching to put forward vision, and it was up to Condi to move forward and try dropping wards.
But they have so many tools where they could be looking for vision as a group. Like, make the tree run forward. If Maokai runs into it and he's like, great, I wanted to be here anyway, just twisted advance forward. Or Condi could be scouting it out with his void spikes, whatever the hell that ability is called. You've got the hawk shot on Ashe, you got Vault. Like, there are so many options, and every single time it's like Team WE one side of the map, Ben the other side of the map. Just like all by himself.
It just felt like as a team they weren't really doing anything. And it really comes into the first play we saw 9 minutes and 30 seconds, right? It was legitimately Ashe and Zara making a play bottom lane, or at least Ashe or Misfortune. They got a kill, and then for whatever reason, Vici came out of it 2-1. And the reason why was because
no teleport follow-up.
There was no teleport follow-up, but mostly because the jungler was not there. And it just, Bengi was there, and Jace was there, and they were able to clean it up. So it just feels like, where was Condi? Where was the Maokai? Overall, Vici played as a unit, as a team, and it felt hard for 957 to leave the lane because he was up against the Jace, but they needed that to happen.
But that's so weird that we can't say the same for Team WE, because historically they've always been, the 5B players put together make the S-tier team, and they looked so disorganized, not communicating. The fact that, like you said, in that play, Jace is there. Maokai has the ability where, he's too late to save his bottom lane, but he could have teleported and they could have picked up more kills. Rise was on his way down, but like, nah, and they just throw the cooldown away. Yeah,
and I mean, that's the biggest question right there, right? Ben or Zero, because a lot of those times, who makes the TP calls? It could be Ben. It could be, of course, it could be 957. But a lot of the time, the bot laner they recognize their own situation that they should be able to call for that at times. And a lot of the time, we didn't see that decisiveness in the bottom lane, and we didn't see that decisiveness elsewhere on the map.
Yeah, the MVP this game, however, is going to go to Easy Hoon at 6-2 and 10, involved in a full 4 out of every 5 of the kills on his team, 80%, doing 22% of his team's damage, but still just such a presence to keep track of Xie.
I mean,
who would you have given it to?
I would have given it to Long. That said, Easy Hoon did a great job in putting down the mid lane, making sure that win condition in the Xie Rise was unable to get going. Making sure that he was cutting off, that he couldn't get down to the bottom lane to kind of stall out the big first play that went wrong for Team WE when Long made the TP down. But I'm never going to...
See, I see that face of yours, and I'm going to actually challenge it just a little bit, mostly because...
Fight me.
Okay, I'll do it. Let's get it up there.
So why Easy Hoon?
Well, yeah, because... I would understand it. I would say Easy Hoon played out of his mind. Not only, sure, he got a lot of help in the mid lane, was able to shut out that matchup. And then I felt like every ult he hit, and he would be Ben's greatest enemy. Every time Ben would look for a vision, he'd say, "No, I'm looking for you." And a lot of his, or at least a lot of his team plays, not a lot of it, but not the most of it, but I would say a few plays came off the back of that ulti pickoff that we'd see from Orianna.
And I would never disagree with any of this. If you set up the dominoes, Easy Hoon's just going to knock them over, and he's going to do it beautifully. We expect this of him. But he's not the dude who's setting up the dominoes. That's Bengi and that's Long. Those are the guys that are making the plays happen, and then Easy Hoon's just executing on them, which was the problem for Team WE. So again, like, there is a very valid argument there for Easy Hoon, but I personally would rather see the players who are facilitating the action get recognized.
They're never going to get that recognition at the end of the day. And overall, I just love the fact that we're having this discussion because Vici just played like a team, and they were able to shut down Vision like a team. We even saw Hitong. He made a very cute play, by the way, that when Ben was trying to look for Vision over the wall for Baron, there were no wards for Ben to see on his end, so he thought, I was like, I'm in the clear. They don't see me. But then we see Hitong actually utilizing his red trinket to say, I actually see you, even though, like, just kind of making that trick play to see if he can catch him out. So they were doing so much to catch that man off guard, and it happened often. So overall, it just felt like everybody on the team was doing their work, and that's great to see coming from Vici.
It really feels like Vici Gaming were coming into this with a set plan and strategy that all 5 members of the team were on the same page on, which they executed through until the end. WE, they had the same idea early game: keep track of Bengi, prevent him from snowballing lanes, let bot lane do work. but then they didn't really have a step 2.